Welcome to Safety Talk, the podcast dedicated to improving your personal safety in both the digital and physical world. Your Safety Talk host is personal safety expert Pete Canavan. Pete shares his insights and interviews experts who provide simple and effective tips, techniques, and technologies to keep you safe and secure both online and off. Here's Pete.
Hello, and welcome to another exciting and what is sure to be a very informative episode of Safety Talk. I'm your host and personal safety expert, Pete Canavan, and I am joined by my colleague, branding and social media expert, Neil Haley. This week, we have another incredible guest for you. He is a cybersecurity consultant and will be talking with us today about why it is so difficult for businesses large and small to protect their computer systems, as well as what they can do about it. And we're going to be covering a lot with him. So our guest today, his name is Chris Moschovitis, and Chris is the founder of TMG Media, eMedia. It is a consultancy that is focused on providing technology, independent technology, and cybersecurity management expertise. His ability to explain complex information, technology, as well as cybersecurity topics to executives really make him a very, very valuable asset to private firms, government agencies, as well as nonprofit organizations. Chris is also the author of Cybersecurity Program Development for Business, a book that I have read most of since he was so kind to send me a complimentary copy. So welcome to Safety Talk, Chris, and thanks for being on the show.
The pleasure is mine. Good to be here.
Yes, and I must say I really do appreciate you sending me a copy of the book, though, but you didn't sign it.
The next time I visit you or the next time you're in New York, there's going to be a signed copy waiting. Besides, Neil has to get one too.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. So, I've personally researched and read a ton of information about, cybersecurity over the years, protecting and securing my clients' networks and systems that I've been doing with my IT company since 1995. Of course, a lot has changed in recent years. And you bring some very good points in your book that I'm going to want to discuss with you a little bit later on after we sort of lay the groundwork. So sound good to you?
Perfect.
So I guess let's kind of start off with, how you got into the cybersecurity world, I guess. Start there.
Oh, my goodness. Well, this year is our 30th year in business. So I started TMG Media about 30 years ago, and one of the first partners that I had was a gentleman by the name of George Whalen. And back then, the days of DOS and the days of Lotus 123, one of the things that George used to collect would be the first original computer viruses. And as a matter of fact, George still has floppy disks with computer viruses from that time ago. So much like you, much for you, as you are protecting your clients in your own information technology business, we did the same thing in ours. So our consultancy, which is a broad spectrum consultancy, does provide managed IT services, and as part of that, security was always a consideration, and also it became an avocation as well. It was something that I particularly loved a great deal, because I understood that cybersecurity is not about information technology. Cybersecurity is about risk management, and that was a fundamental shift in the way that you approach it, because you need to be able to talk to business people in a language that they will understand. And if you start talking technology, eyes are going to glaze over. But if you start talking risk, then you have the opportunity to actually connect with people in a language that they understand, because every business person understands risk. That's why they're in the business. They know what risks to take.
And that's something that, I'm glad you went there, because, that's something that you bring out in the book that is very, very important, because and I've experienced this, and when you talked about it in the book, I was reading it and shaking my head going, yep. And that is that most companies have an IT department, and they feel like, well, they're being protected because the IT department handles the cybersecurity. But you are very clear in saying that it is extremely important that you keep those two departments separate. They're part of the same whole, but yet one is creating value for the company, the IT department, and the other, cybersecurity side of it, is protecting that value.
That's exactly right. I think you couldn't have said it better. It is like two parallel tracks of a train. You can't have one intersect with the other, or you can't have one crossing the other. These tracks have to always be in parallel so that your train never gets derailed. And your business is the train. Information technology is one track, and cybersecurity is another track. They can't be reporting to one another. They have got to be separate. There's a conflict of interest exactly because of what you just said. One generates value, the other one is protecting it. So obviously, if what protects value is reporting to what generates value, there is going to be a conflict.
Yeah,
so Chris,
exactly.
and when you see this situation occur with lack of cybersecurity, the costs can be huge on a business, because if there's a breach, especially with their clients' information, that could not just cost them money lost that was taken, but also lawsuits and other types of things happening to that client, correct?
That's absolutely right, Neil. And the issue here is that it's not just the cost of the actual breach. But it is the reputational cost. It's the litigation costs. Many a business have gone out of business because of these kinds of lawsuits. And if you are a small to mid-sized business and you're not protected and you're breached and you're handling personally identifiable information, or God forbid HIPAA information, medical information, then you could be in very, very serious trouble. You could be indeed out of business, and worse, you could go to jail.
Yeah, it's a very scary thing. And I was reading a recent report, the Cyber Threat Defense Report. The latest version they did, it was 2007 by a group called Cyber Edge Group. I don't know if you're familiar with, but it was really crazy, some of the statistics that they had in there, because in 2017, an astounding 79% of businesses that were surveyed admitted that they were victims of a cyber attack.
Sure.
And
sure.
I mean, unbelievable. I mean, you're talking basically 8 out of 10, and that was up from 76% the year before and 70% the year before that. So we're seeing this roughly about a 5 or 6% increase year over year on the amount of attacks that are happening to businesses. And the craziest part of it, and from what I've seen, and I'm sure you have as well, a lot of them don't even know it.
That's right. That's exactly right. And this is part of something that we as professional cybersecurity professionals have not emphasized enough. We haven't communicated this successfully. So the first thing that everybody needs to understand is that the attacker has all the advantages in the world, right? So because the attacker has all the time in the world, the attacker has all the intelligence in their hands, the attacker can exploit and explore different ways to penetrate your business. So if this attacker, if you, in essence, if you are a target of an advanced persistent threat type of an attack, it's not an if. You will be breached. I guarantee you that you will be breached.
Wow, yeah.
There is nothing that you are going to be able to do that will stop you from being breached. So therefore, what you need to be prepared about is how fast can you detect it? How quickly can you recover? This is where you need to be for an advanced persistent threat.
Now, Chris, looking at you talk about that, the problem is now online you can learn how to hack people. You could become a professional hacker by just taking courses that
Sure.
are online and are available. So
Right.
unless you really protect yourself as a company, either by a third party like yourself or go with big companies that have someone like yourself on staff, you really have to watch out. And we see people like Facebook get breached. We see
of course.
Target get breached.
Right.
So if you're not as big as Target or Facebook, you really have to have someone like yourself or Pete on board, or really have a company that has some expert in that to protect your website or protect any type of your information that's stored online.
That's right, Neil. And what's worse here is that there is a very serious shortage, not only in the United States, but worldwide, of cybersecurity professionals. So the positions are very difficult to fill, first of all. Second of all, there is a lot of people that will claim that they do cybersecurity when in fact they don't have the necessary certifications or credentials to even know, or for that matter, the experience to know how to take care of an organization. And overall, you're right. And it's interesting, the example that you just mentioned, the Target example. How did Target get breached? breached. Target did not get breached directly. Target got breached because they first gained a foothold on their air conditioning supplier. And the air conditioning supplier had a network connection with Target. It was that connection that was exploited and went south from there. So there is no size. Size in this case, size definitely does not matter. We hear all of these stories again and again. Amazon has gotten breached. Facebook got breached. Major companies with very serious security budgets are getting breached every single day. And the bigger the company, the more attractive the target it is.
But I also think that what ends up happening is people see these large companies getting hacked and breached in the news, and they think, well, why would they be interested in my little company with 10 or 20 employees or even 100 or 200 employees? They're, what do I have that these other companies, why would they waste their time with me? And what I tell them is, look, you don't have nearly the security and the infrastructure and the technology and all the tools that these larger organizations have. So don't you think you're a little bit easier to hack? And so they don't realize that. They think that because they're not large, that they're not a target. But so many of these attacks are automated, where these bots go out and they just probe networks. They look for holes.
Absolutely.
And when they find the hole, it doesn't matter if you're a big company or a small company, it could be a ransomware attack that comes in, encrypts all your data, and now pay me money to get your data back, or go out of business, or hope you got an offsite backup that didn't also get encrypted, because I've seen that happen. Somebody's got a backup plugged into the server. Well, guess what? The server got encrypted with ransomware. The backup got encrypted from ransomware because it was connected to the server.
Right, exactly right, Pete. Exactly right. And that's the thing. The thing, and Neil was mentioning earlier that you can get all of these courses online and learn how to be a hacker. Organized crime has moved to the web. Why has that happened? Because of the old adage, why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. Why is cybercrime so prevalent right now on the web? Because that's where the money is. It's easy money. It is money without any risk of physical harm. No risk of getting arrested, for that matter, in most countries where cyber criminals are. And they are extraordinarily well organized and also extraordinarily well funded. So there are cells and there are universities all in the dark web. There is support groups. There's everything that you can possibly need to set up your own little cybercrime cell is available for you in the dark web.
So scary.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, and so that's the thing. And how can we learn? I love that question you brought up for people out there that are in IT or in social media or in some sort of technology, that there's opportunities to become a cybersecurity expert. And it's looks like a good job qualification. How do you get the certification so that you can help fill the need that's really needed out there today?
Well, my first step if you're considering a career in cybersecurity would be to join ISACA. And ISACA is an international organization with hundreds of thousands of members worldwide, and they have extensive training programs that lead to certifications in both audit and cybersecurity. There is, of course, other organizations, worldwide organizations of equal stature. ISC Squared comes to mind, SANS comes to mind, that you can also join, participate, and learn. But you need to plan your career out, and for my money, ISACA is one of the best places to do that, because you can start with CSX and then you can move forward. You can go all the way up to CISM, which is a Certified Information Security Manager. But also ISACA complements this with additional certifications in a variety of technical audits, as well as governance. And that's really important. We can't dismiss governance from conversations of cybersecurity and information technology anymore. Up until now, IT was doing their own thing. Now cybersecurity is a thing, unless there's governance in place. Like we were talking about earlier, how IT and cybersecurity need to be reporting separately. They cannot be cross-reporting to one another. That's a governance conversation. So all of these things are very important to learn, understand the best practices, understand these principles, and then build a career with a tremendous support network from there.
My oldest son, I have 3 boys. My oldest son's in college, and he has shifted to cybersecurity. And I've been telling him he needs to go to that, because he was interested.
Send me his resume.
I will, because he knows that that's a huge field because I talk about it. I told him, he wanted to do something with the computers and he doesn't like to program necessarily. And I said, that's fine. I said, cybersecurity is a burgeoning field. And as you mentioned earlier, Chris, there are not a lot of people that know what it's all about. And so that's why I'm really glad that we have you on today, because we can start to sort of educate people and dispel some of the maybe misconceptions around information tech or around cybersecurity for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about hackers, either black hat hackers or white hat hackers. Yes, you can get the training. Yes, you can gain the experience in either the dark arts or the white arts, if you will. But the fact of the matter is that they're truly great hackers are gifted individuals. They are puzzle solvers and programmers that not only understand the science behind this, but they have the talent. It's like you and me can play a really mean guitar, but none of us is going to be Eric Clapton. Being Eric Clapton is not only about practice, but there is a gift there, in my view, in an event.
No, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Chris, why do you think it's so difficult today to protect our computer systems?
Well, I think the number one reason that immediately jumps to mind is their incredible complexity. People walk around every single day with a cell phone in their pocket, and that cell phone has more computing power and more complex instructions than Apollo 11 that landed on the moon. So our systems are incredibly complex, number one. Number two, they are made up by many different parts coming from many different vendors. So although these things are integrated to a very good degree, when you're dealing with millions of lines of code that are being executed in any particular time, there is inevitably there's going to be holes in it. These holes are zero-day exploits or exploits. And if you haven't patched them and if you haven't fixed them, then the people are going to go through it. And there may be very valid reasons why people have not patched their own computer systems. We have clients that are running legacy applications. By that, I mean applications that are very old. Some of them written in exciting COBOL, for example, or other languages. And they're mission critical. They need to run these applications. Well, guess what? If you're running an application that's legacy and you attempt to patch it with the latest security patch that's coming from the operating system vendor, it will break.
Yep.
So you can't patch it because you are going to be out of business, and it may take millions of dollars to rewrite the application, or it may take 3 or 4 years to rewrite the application. Either way, you're going to have to fence that application with layered controls to protect it.
Right.
That's the biggest reason why things fail is this complexity and this enormous amount of systems that are already in place.
What if you don't have a good IT team in place for your small business? That really relates to when you're hiring a cybersecurity expert, that if the IT is not able to tell you you have some problems going on, it really hurts the entire system, that you won't even know that you're going to be breached because you didn't have the right IT team in place.
That's right, Neil. And having the right IT people is critical and sadly rare for a variety of reasons. Again, both cybersecurity and IT are very difficult professions to get into. By that, I mean that it takes years of study and dedication. And then essentially you are in this service organization that is supporting, you're in the back office supporting the goals of an organization if you're dealing with a small business. So IT people right now, I don't want to generalize broadly, but IT people are typically not particularly well paid, especially in the support area. So many small and mid-sized businesses end up with people that are not particularly well versed in what's going on, and they have a tremendous ego. And if you're going into IT and cybersecurity with an ego, you're using a 4-letter word, not a 3-one.
Yeah, and it's true, because I mean, I've dealt with many of them over the years, and it's true. And when you try to point out that there could possibly be a problem within the company's current IT structure or with the people that are there, they take offense to it. And it's no, I'm not trying to say anything negative about you. It's just that, and this is one of the things I believe that you had in the book, is that you have you may be really good at your job in the IT field, but you don't necessarily know what it takes to be good at risk management. And
That's right.
they're different subjects, and that's why it's important to keep them separate. Like you mentioned, you can't have the company that's creating the value the same one that's protecting it because of the direct conflict. And that's an education thing that we need to get out to people. And I'm actually building a cybersecurity mass class right now for clients because I want to educate them in their knowledge of what it takes and why it's different, because trying to talk to them a lot of times they don't understand. So
yeah, that's a great thing to do, and that's of great value to the clients.
Sure. So if we extrapolate this out a little bit, what would you have a lot of experience in this field. You deal with this every day. What do you see as the, quote, worst possible scenario or the worst nightmare that could happen? Would it be something on a global scale, some sort of collapse? What is your take on that?
Well, my worst nightmare, my worst cybersecurity nightmare is loss of life. We are now integrating the Internet of Things into our daily lives in a very, very pervasive and deep way. These kinds of systems tend to be unsecured and rushed to the market. These things control vital functions. They control cars, they control air traffic, they control water, they control the electrical grid. If these things get hacked, we could all be faced with a significant loss of life. It is entirely possible that when the Russians were attacking the Ukraine, and they attacked the Ukrainian electrical grid, loss of life may have occurred there. I have not read a definitive report that says, as a result of this hack, life was lost. But it is possible that has already occurred. So my worst nightmare is that. In my predictions that I've been asked to put some predictions together, my prediction was that we are going to see in this year and the coming years a cyber warfare escalation. And if we're talking about escalating cyber warfare, then undoubtedly loss of life is by default in that prediction. Yeah.
Hey, Chris, do you get upset? I talk about this with other security experts in other areas. What you see on television, like there was an Amazon movie out, a Netflix movie out about the end of the world. It was not very good, but it showed specifically the grid all getting knocked down. And they didn't know if it was from a natural disaster or whatever. The power was out. There was no cell phone service. Imagine now how people could survive. How could they deal with no cell phone? They're so used to being without cash on hand. Right. It showed about all these people with cash, and I'm like, this is a joke. And no one has cash like this.
And Chris knows this. I mean, one EMP, 250 miles up in the middle of the country, poof, electricity gone. Right. And our whole society and everything that we know that depends on all of this technology, and now even more so, like you're just saying, the Internet of Things, everything from your refrigerators to every little component now is connected to the Internet. And that's the whole reason why we had to go to the new IPv6 format, because we were running out of IP addresses. And now we have so many more. I read that there are so many now addresses with the new standard. It's equivalent to like the number of stars in the universe or something. It's like a stupid huge number.
Yeah, it is. It is. We already have more IP addresses than we have humans on the planet by a significant factor. Yeah, by a significant factor. But you're right. We had a speaker talk to us about emergency preparedness, and this person was, I live and work in New York City. We're headquartered in New York City, and this person was from the disaster bureau of New York, of the city, and he was lending his expertise to our group. And he said, "Listen, you're living in a high rise. In this high rise, there's tenants. Some tenants are old, some tenants are sick, some tenants are young. If we lose power, don't bother dialing 911 because there's nobody coming."
Right.
Okay, we are dealing with a crisis that is very, very serious. If you lose power, you better have a plan in your building to take care of these elderly people. You better have a plan in your building to make sure that the sick person can get water or can get care, because dialing 911 isn't going to help. nobody's going to show up. And if you think that electricity is going to come back within a couple of days, that would be fantastic. But if it is a massive attack, you may be out of electricity in New York City for a week or two. Can you imagine New York City with no power for 2 weeks?
It would be insane. It would,
and then you're talking about power. You're talking about also what if the banking system, and so everything with that, everyone trying to even eliminate cash. That's the biggest thing I have is, Chris, I don't carry a lot of cash on me, but I guess I'm not afraid or fearful yet about this. But all these copycatters, you never know. And then remember, I think it came out the government's one of their biggest lacks of defense is cybersecurity.
That's right.
They say they can't. And so what are our enemies doing to try to figure out ways? I guess if we talk about the election, I don't want to get into some crazy politics here, but other things that they
like cyber warfare. I mean,
China does it all the time.
Yeah, so I mean, we can extract that out into
Sure.
cyber warfare, and the risk of that. I mean, Chris, what's your take on that? The likely risk of, for example, some sort of cyber warfare, which
I think it's very real. I think that, first of all, I think we are already in a cyber war, number one. Number two, we have already experienced significant nation-state attacks on our cyber infrastructure. The election is something not trivial to be discussing about. Those breaches and those manipulations are extraordinarily serious, and they are a fundamental attack to our way of life and our democracy, and we're being glib about it, and we cannot be. We stand to lose everything with this kind of intrusive propaganda. But I am very worried. Do you know what Russia is doing between now and April? They're disconnecting the whole country of Russia from the internet. Why are they doing that? They're doing it as a test because they have a mandate to their own providers inside Russia to make sure that they have systems in place such that if Russia is to be disconnected through, quote, an aggressive act from the internet, their own internal systems will continue to function. They're going to do this test. They're going to do this test between now and April.
I did not know that.
They're taking this extremely seriously, and it is very serious. And let me assure you that when we shut the government down for like a month plus, and we are reducing the staffing of the NSA and the cybersecurity experts and contractors down to, quote, as the spokesman said, bare bones facilities, that everybody else that's on the other side and that they are our enemies, they are exploiting that opportunity. They are going to be penetrating as many systems as they possibly can.
Sure, because they know we're short-staffed. Exactly.
So we are not being particularly serious about this, and we need to be far, far, far more serious when it comes to cybersecurity. I found it disappointing and disheartening, to say the least, if not straight out embarrassing, that we are watching, quote, senior statesmen senators having hearings with Facebook, and there is a senator that's asking Zuckerberg, well, I don't understand how you make money. You're giving all these things for free. I don't understand how you give money, how you're making money. And Zuckerberg is looking at this guy as if he landed from Mars. It's like, how I'm making money? Advertising?
Yep.
And that is just the top layer of the onion, because this guy, Zuckerberg, is not just making money from advertising, he's making money out of pawning your own data.
Oh, yeah. And that is very scary, because many of those in government are older. They don't understand it. They don't understand the technology. They don't understand the risk. Or when they are probably presented with information and reports from, various experts and departments, whether it's, the NSA or FBI or whatever, that are saying, look, we have some very real threats we have to worry about here. They worry about, oh no, global warming is our biggest threat. And it blows my mind because it's so much more than what they understand.
It is a lot more. And I want to emphasize, because I know several of them, I want to emphasize the incredible talent that exists in our military and NSA and our intelligence agencies. There's people that are dedicated to protecting every single one of us. And they're going through many a sleepless night, underfunded, and trying their hardest to do that. Let's just not make their life any more difficult than it already is. We need more staffing. We need more funding. We need more awareness across all tiers of our society. We certainly need to be educating our government officials about what all this means, and then going all the way down from the federal to the state and to the city and to the community level to make sure that everybody has cybersecurity awareness training. And then we need to move to our schools, and we need to move to everywhere so that everybody understands what the game here is.
Now, so Chris, what can people, like when you're talking about identify these facts, you're talking about all these issues that we're talking about. We're talking about all these ways we can be breached. Now, if you're telling us enough cybersecurity experts out there, I think educating the public, first of all, of what they shouldn't do, which is simple little things, almost like what Pete talks about, and being aware when you're walking around. You have to be the same aware of your cybersecurity in so many ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You need to be aware of what's going on. You cannot dismiss this. And unfortunately, the language of technology and the language of cybersecurity, and by the way, we need to own up the fact that us, our information technology professionals and cybersecurity professionals, have not exactly been doing the best job in being able to complete the handshake with people that are not in the field. We talk over them instead of talking to them and with them. The professionals need to develop communication skills so that we are more effective at reaching people, first of all. So we can explain it to people, and we can also talk them off the ledge. Because if I am a businessman and I'm struggling for my survival every single day, if I am an individual that I'm worried about the cybersecurity of my own children, my own household, I have so many things to think about. I have to think about where the next paycheck is coming in. I have to think about my clients. I have to think about my health. I have to think about the kids. I have to think about everything. I don't have time to think about yet one more problem. So it's understandable that they will want to hide their head in the sand. We are the ones that we have to gently bring them aboard and explain that, yes, the world has changed, and yes, nobody signed up for this additional problem, but guess what? We're here, we're going to work it together. This is what this means. This is what the risk is. Let's look at a pragmatic defense for your business.
And that's exactly what the whole purpose of this podcast is. That's why I named it Safety Talk, because people don't like talking about safety on just about any level, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's their personal safety and well-being, whether it's something that's a workplace violence, whether it's an active shooter, whether it's something else. Most people think it's not going to happen to them. And every single victim of anything, whether it's a cyber attack, a ransomware, or a mugging, or a rape, or a terror attack, or an active shooter, all says the same thing. I never thought it would happen to me.
That's right.
And that's a really scary thing. And you bring up that point perfectly with regard to cybersecurity, that the technology, staff in these companies, many of them have a very hard time articulating the information in such a way that management and employees understand. They just look at, that is, the management and employees look at it as, oh, IT's making me do something else, or IT's making me install this on my phone, or why do I have to do this, and why do I have to change my password so much? It's a pain in the neck. And so they look at it as a major inconvenience, when in reality, you're doing it for not just their own protection of their company and their data and their jobs, but maybe even their lives.
Of course. You're absolutely right, Pete. And the thing is that a lot of the technologists out there make technology a religious conversation. So we have many a client that we have gone to over the years that they're using, a set of tools to do, let's say they're using a certain antivirus program, okay? I'm using this as an example. And it is the ABC antivirus. And we go in and we say, listen, given what you have here and what your threat environment is and the things that you're protecting, it seems to us that potentially a better choice would be this virus, the antivirus program called DEF. Here's the differences and here's why we think this would be a better choice. And it becomes a religious argument.
Right. Why do I have to spend that? Isn't it doing the job for me? It's going to cost me 3 times as much. I got all of these licenses, and now I got to learn a new software, and the pushback is incredible.
And the pushback is incredible from the financial side, like you just said, and it's also incredible from the IT people say, no, I picked this and it's the best.
Right, they take it personally.
It's my personal opinion that I picked this and it's the best. It's like, listen, this is not about, perhaps at the time you hadn't considered this, or things have changed, or this, that, and the other. It's like, no. It's like, I picked it, it's the best. So you have the religious arguments. And that, by the way, translates all the way to the boardroom, because you can have IT people that have a very specific point of view, a very specific worldview of how technology needs to be deployed. You know, the Microsoft versus Mac arguments, this application versus that application, and so on and so forth. And it goes, and businesses are hostages to this.
I have a client that came to mind as soon as you said that, because I have somebody, one of my clients, there's a guy who sits on the board who used to work for a big technology company. And when I bring something up, he thinks he knows more. And I'm like, I'm just trying to help. I'm trying to educate you. I understand you have some experience, but when was the last time you actually learned about some of the current ways of protecting this organization and its technology? And it's like, you know, they think you're trying to sell them something, but okay, that's maybe part of it. I'm not going to try to sell you something you don't need, because if you find out about it later, you're not going to be my client for long. I want you to be around for a long time so you can remain my client, so we can continue to work together, and everybody, you know, is happy at the end of the day.
And you can refer me to future business, because that's how we get business. We get business by our reputation and by one client saying to a prospect, hey, these guys are great and they really have done a fantastic job. So unfortunately, that those are some of the issues that we deal in the profession, and it will take, you know, a cultural shift and awareness, and it will take conversation. So there's a lot of in several of the trainings that I do.
Or it'll take an attack.
I hope not.
No, let's hope not.
And I hope not either. But sometimes that's what it takes for people to wake up. They think nothing's going to happen, and then all of a sudden.
I think a loss of money when you're talking about businesses. So, Chris, looking at your book, how can we benefit from buying your book? How can we benefit from utilizing this book as a resource when you talk about how we're uneducated in so many ways regarding cybersecurity?
Neil, I think that the driving force behind the book, the reason why I wrote the book the way that I written the book, is first of all to be extremely approachable, very easily understood, and funny. So if a business person, be it an executive, a board member, or anyone gets a hold of the book, they can read it cover to cover and really get an understanding of what the field is all about.
And I can totally attest to that, because I've read the vast majority of it. And the way you laid it out is very good. You explain the various components. You put it in terminology that, again, anybody from the most technical person to the person with the least amount of technical knowledge in a company can read it, understand it, and recognize the fact that this is something that really needs to be seriously looked at. And so, I mean, as a cybersecurity expert, you work with private businesses all the time. What would you say a bad cybersecurity system looks like? And then, of course, I'll ask you about a good one.
Well, a bad cybersecurity system is a system that's in place begrudgingly, and it typically takes the form of a checklist. It's like, oh, geez, the regulators are making me do a cybersecurity thing, or my vendor or my client is making me do a cybersecurity thing. So I'm going to have 10 check boxes. I'm going to check them off, and that'll be that. That's not how cybersecurity works. Cybersecurity is a living program. You have to look at your assets. You have to look at the assets. You have to look at the threats. You have to look at the environment, and then protect accordingly. And you have to keep evaluating this all the time. It's not a checklist. So those are the worst kind of cybersecurity programs, when they are just like some sort of a checklist with people checking it off and not taking it seriously. They are paying lip service to cybersecurity. That's like paying lip service to your health. Right. Or having a car and getting inside the car, and instead of buckling your safety belt, you sit on it and you just put the clip in so that the thing doesn't go beep, beep, beep the minute you start moving the car. It's like, good job there, genius.
Yes. That's unfortunately, that's very, that's true of how a lot of people would approach it. Having a good cybersecurity system, I would say, you know, the way you lay it out in the book is excellent. People should really go out and get this if they're interested, the cybersecurity program development for business, because you talk about the information that a company needs to gather, the documentation, what's important to the company, how to conduct those risk assessments, the threat assessments, and then basically how to map out the processes and the controls to come up with a good incident response plan. And that is an excellent way to approach it, basically A to Z.
Right, that's right. Thank you. That was the goal of the book. The goal of the book was to give you all the tools to understand enough for you to have a meaningful conversation with an expert, so that you're not lost.
Okay,
so you can complete the handshake.
I'm not an IT guy like Pete. I pretend to be one. Just kidding. I have a lot of experts around me. I surround myself with the right people. Pete's one of them.
Right.
My team in India is another great resource I have. Now, tell me specifically enough what I should be doing as a business with like a couple tips I can utilize today regarding cybersecurity in my business.
Well, first of all, the first thing that you need to do is identify what are the assets that you want to be protecting. What are you protecting? How much is it worth it to you? That is the very first thing that you need to establish. What am I protecting? How much is it worth it to me? You need to get that down on paper, no matter what size business you are. And you work this iteratively. If you're a small business, then you yourself can probably come up with a list. If you are a huge business, then you work business unit by business unit, department by department. The next thing you need to figure out is like, who's out to get me? What are the threats? Pragmatically speaking, what are the threats? Who is going to be out to get me? Then you work down the list. What are the vulnerabilities of the systems that I'm using? And those are known to a very large extent. Those are known, unless you're dealing with zero day. They're known. And after you have all of these things down, then you say, okay, I am protecting assets worth $1 million. I am going to deploy controls that are going to cost me X amount of money. That X amount of money can never be over $1 million, because then you're spending more money protecting the assets than they're worth. So you have to deploy controls in a business pragmatic way. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to accept some risk. You definitely are going to have to accept some risk. We all do. Every single day that we cross the street, we accept some risk. You as a business owner, you're also going to be accepting some risk. And then you deploy these controls. You've done so in a business pragmatic way. And the next thing you're saying, okay, how do I recover? And you get your team together. And by the way, by team, I don't mean just the IT people or the cybersecurity people. I mean your team, your executive team, your business people, your partners. You sit them all around the table and say, listen, if something happens, what do we do? Rehearse it. Who is going to communicate to our clients? Who is going to communicate to the bank? Who is going to communicate to the employees? What happens if we have no access to data? How long can we afford to not have access to data? How long at what point in time do we need to recover our data? And so on and so forth. You go through that incident response planning exercise, which is tied with your disaster recovery and business continuity plan. And now you can sleep easier. You have it now. You got it.
And I have to point out something, Chris, that you mentioned, and a lot of people may think that this is exaggerating, or they may think that it's accurate. And I can attest to it being accurate. I'm sure you can too. And that is that people are your greatest asset to your business, but they're also your greatest liability.
That's absolutely right. Exactly right. The most effective cybersecurity control is people. And so you need to focus on your people. You need to focus on educating your people and providing cybersecurity awareness training. And yeah, they are your best control. They are more than likely your best assets. And very frequently, they can be your most serious problem. Insider breaches are on the increase, and they can be for many reasons, starting from stupidity all the way down to criminal intent and criminal negligence sometimes. So you need to be take a very close look to your insider threat problems.
Yeah, and how to lock down your data. I mean, somebody gets into some financial problems and a competitor reaches out to them and says, hey, we'll pay you, $50,000 if you download your company's database, and give it to us. If you don't have that USB port locked down, if you don't have that data secured somehow where you've got various levels of access to that data, so only certain people get certain levels of access, these are all part and parcel of a comprehensive cybersecurity plan.
That's exactly right. Segregation of duties becomes very, very important. Only access what you need to know in order for you to do your job and nothing else. and pay close attention to employee behavior, very close attention. A person may have very legitimate and desperate reasons for needing the money. They could have people that are sick and they're getting broke by paying their health care, or they themselves have a gambling problem or a drug problem or a nasty divorce. Or they could be they could be disgruntled employees. They may feel that you have shorted them for some reason, and they needed to exact revenge. So
Yeah,
there are many reasons why people go south on you.
So basically, a breach can happen anyway. It's not just from a hacker, but somebody who accesses the information. You got to make sure you have the right IT solutions, that only certain people have certain administrative access and other people don't. And they can't break through that administration to get higher access. That's one.
Neil, I think you are a cybersecurity person.
He's learning rapidly.
Yes, you are. That is exactly right, Neil. That a threat is a threat is a threat. It could be an insider threat. It could be a nation state. It could be a cyber criminal. It could be a hacktivist. It could be God knows what. But a threat is a threat and a threat. And if it's an insider threat, those are the most insidious of them all. You remember the movie? The phone call is coming from inside the house.
Yes, it's very insidious how these things happen. And, a lot of businesses, they think about the external threats more than the internal threats. They think about the ransomware. They think about the viruses, the malware. They think about somebody going to a website they're not supposed to be, or posting something on social media or whatever it happens to be. They don't think about what about the person who's there. And for all of those reasons that you just gave, and then some, there could be a big problem that has nothing to do about the the external security from your system from the outside. It could be from the inside. And when you mentioned before about how Russia is going to go through this exercise and unplug from the web, I think that's absolutely brilliant, because it's going to expose to them any vulnerabilities or any systems that they need to look at and say, hey, we unplugged this, it doesn't work anymore. Now we've got to come. So they're doing their own kind of cybersecurity exercise.
Absolutely, they are.
And that's
absolutely they are. And that's part of the thing. We as Americans are sometimes encumbered by our own arrogance, and we need to recognize that there is people all over the world that are equally as prideful and equally as skillful as we are, and we need to take a good measure of who and what the opponent can do, and take nothing for granted, and practice, and prepare accordingly. I am not a warmonger, and if anyone that knows me will tell you that I am a dove. I am pro-peace and anti-war, but I am also pragmatic and factual. We do not have any treaties in place for cyber warfare. We do not have any alliances like the same way we have NATO to deal with cyber warfare. Why? Why not?
We should.
Because yes, we should, but we don't, because we ourselves want to play in the wild, wild west. We ourselves want to explore the limits of what it is that we can do and what we can get away with. And we're putting everybody in danger by doing that.
And the military uses the OODA loop, OODA. You've probably heard of that, which stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. And that's how they approach. That's their approach to incident response.
Right. And so when you're talking about cybersecurity and breaches and different things like this, you talked about a business. What about the government? What recommendations would you give the government right now so they can become better at this?
My first recommendation to any government official is take this seriously and educate yourself on it very quickly. Very quickly. Yesterday is good. So you need, get my book.
Right.
Get the book. Read this thing and start understanding that this is clear and present danger, and do not horse around with this. You need to understand that this is something that is serious, and we are at risk, and we have mission critical systems that protect our way of life deployed across our country that we need to protect. And once you understand that, and once you understand what the scope is, surround yourself with the absolute best people, solicit opinions, and start developing a plan to protect all of these systems and to protect our country and our way of life. That is what I would say.
Excellent advice. Excellent advice. And Chris, where can people pick up your book, Cybersecurity Program Development for Business? And it is the essential planning guide, and it really is. The whole first part of the book is a very high level where it explains everything, and then the second half of the book is all the detail. Where can people get this?
They can get it on Amazon. They can get it wherever fine books are sold, as they say, at Barnes & Noble and every other place. It's published by Wiley, which is a great publisher. I'm very, very honored to be published by them. So you can get the book everywhere there is, but certainly on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and any major bookstore will have it.
Do you have, that's fantastic, and I definitely encourage people to go out, because you do not have to be someone with any, and let me stress, any technical knowledge or information about cybersecurity to benefit and learn from this book. It will give you a great education and understanding of what is out there and what you can do to protect your business. So any small business owner, any big business owner, get it. Because if you feel like your IT department's talking over your head, get this book, and in the next meeting, you're going to blow their mind.
That's exactly, yeah, that's right. That is exactly right.
Do you have any last thoughts, Chris, for our listeners today?
I tread carefully would be my thoughts. I am, like, we talked about a lot of things that are very scary, from cyber warfare to breaches and everything else. Tread carefully, stay pragmatic, and think about how much is everything worth it to you, and protect accordingly.
Very good advice. So, Neil, anything else that you'd like to ask Chris? And if not, we'll wrap it up.
I think this is very, very valuable, but I like, for myself, now Pete's in the cybersecurity business. I'm sure I'll be helping sell Pete's services, but if I wanted to kind of be more and more of a liaison, if we keep growing and learn more about how all these companies or small businesses or even brands start developing their own membership websites, things like that, we definitely have to look at cybersecurity. So we really have to look at that specific checklist, right?
It's huge.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, well, Chris, thanks so much for being on the show, and thank to all the listeners who are tuning in today to Safety Talk. You can get more information and the latest news about safety at our website, safetytalkpodcast.com. There are also links to other websites there. You can get free safety checklists, learn more about me, my services, Neil, and we also feature any products that are discussed on the show on safetytalkproducts.com. So I will be happy to put a link up to Chris's book on that website for him. So until next time, you guys stay safe, and we'll see you next week, where we'll have another great show for you. Have a great day. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Peter, Neil. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Thank you.